a forthcoming ruling on whether Jack Smith can use what is being termed highly incriminating evidence. And this comes in the specific form of Trump lawyer Evan Corcoran's notes that he had been compiling during this process apparently include highly incriminating evidence of obstruction of justice. It provides evidence, or I guess to some extent contemporaneous proof, that there had been a variety of different forms of ways that they tried to stop the government from getting those documents, from recovering some of them, finding out which ones are still being held. Now, the issue is that that's his lawyer. Now, there is something called the crime fraud exception, which is that the immunity that you have for like attorney-client privilege does not extend to like the commission of a crime. And so if it's evidence of obstruction of justice, it would seem that this is a slam dunk that Jack Smith should be able to use that. But again, it's Aileen Cannon. And so there's nothing slam dunk, nothing reasonable or common sense anyway. And so, Adrienne, what do you think about those two aspects? The possibility that his appointment or whatever could result in the entire thing going away, and whether they might get access to this evidence or be able to use it in court.
Well, I think it's unfortunate that Aileen Cannon was assigned this case from the jump, given that she did not have trial experience, and then also her being a Trump appointee. And we are seeing the exact product of her slant and her bias. First off, like you said, Trump's attorneys are going to try to throw the kitchen sink out there. It's her job to weed through it and to see what is a legally viable argument. And the fact that there's any kind of argument here, it's completely and totally laughable. This thought that Aileen Cannon would even entertain their arguments, and it's particularly this situation with the attorney-client privilege. Well, that's exactly what happened with John Eastman and his emails with Trump. Trump likes to use attorneys to shield himself in some way so he can try to have that attorney-client privilege protection. But when you do use your attorneys to help you further and advance a crime, that means that protection falls to the wayside. And that's a very, very standard basic thing. So she should be doing an in-camera review of these documents, see that there is some involvement in criminal activity, and thus they cannot be shielded by attorney-client privilege. And if she in any way says that that's not the case and puts a situation here where you have the attorneys are unable to move forward, the prosecutors, it's a complete and total, it's an abuse of the justice system, and it just really continues to undermine the legitimacy of the courts. It's a joke.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's all we've gotten from her. And also that whole paycheck thing, get out of here. They all get paid from the same people, the US government.
Yeah, and look, I think one of the reasons, to the extent that there's any oversight or that anything, like you talked about some of the other judges pushing for her to be taken off or whatever. Like, I don't know what can actually be done beyond that. I think part of the issue here is it would be one thing if we have all these different legal threads, and this is the one where it's clearly things are being manipulated to with the motivation of making it so that we never get resolution of the case. But the issue is that we have so many of those simultaneously. On the January 6th case, well, the Supreme Court's, they're just burning the midnight oil trying to figure out if Donald Trump should be able to murder people in blind sight and get away with it. So we don't have any progress on that. In Fulton County, because of a relationship, well, we got to wait a couple more months to figure out if Fonnie Willis should be taken off the case, so we may not have that. I feel like there's so many of these that to some extent it kicks up a little bit of dust that allows her to operate in a really corrupt fashion. I don't think there's as much oversight as there would be if this was the only one where there appeared to be a judge exerting bias. But we unfortunately have one of the superior courts in Georgia, we have our Supreme Court, and we have Aileen Cannon, all of them Republicans dominated by conservatives and manipulating things to stop us from ever seeing justice. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.